The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So the White House announced yesterday, after apparently Trump had a call with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, basically announced that they are going to withdraw their support for Syrian Democratic Forces in northeastern Syria. These forces are led by the Kurdish People's Protection Units, or also known as the YPG, and they've been fighting against ISIS. Now, the U.S. has actually been backing these forces since 2014, but now, since this conversation and since this announcement yesterday, the U.S. troops, of which there are about 1,000 over there, they're actually going to step aside while Turkey goes on this mass ground and air operation of offensive, most likely definitely an offensive, because they're in Syria. You know what I'm saying? Turkey coming into Syria. It's not sure if they're just going to step aside and allow them to attack, or if they're completely going to remove from Syria. But you know, Trump has been calling for the removal of U.S. troops from Syria anyway, and even made the false announcement that ISIS is defeated. Green Wall and Graduation. Report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. You see me with this little bun in the bag, this little hang time, you feel me? Ain't getting long hair, don't care, I'll soon be that, you dig? Now check this out though, over in Iraq, I've been telling y'all about the anti-government protests that have been going on. I mean, they want that regime completely changed, but as anti-government protests have gone on, you know, Afghan forces have actually imposed a curfew that has continued to be violated by the people who've been protesting. You're talking about thousands of people going out there, and these Afghan forces have unfortunately been firing on these crowds of protesters. So you even have, and I told y'all in the past about, like, you know, what's going on in Baghdad and Nasiriyah and other parts of Iraq, Tahrir Square in Baghdad and all of that, whatever. But so far you got 109 people that have been killed, about 6,000 people that have been wounded from government forces straight up just firing on these protesters. And hey man, shit might get worse before it gets better. Green Wall and Graduation. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So with Donald Trump and this whole Ukrainian scandal, that's actually sparked the whole impeachment proceeding against him, where a whistleblower came out and basically revealed that he had solicited help from Ukraine to get them to open up an investigation against Joe Biden. There's actually a second whistleblower that's actually come to light, basically corroborating the story after an interview with the intelligence community's inspector general. So it looks like they pretty much just doubling down on what's already been understood, which is that Trump was essentially using military aid that was supposed to go to Ukraine as a bargaining chip to essentially get them to open up an investigation against Joe Biden, you know what I mean, which is somebody that's essentially considered a front runner for president on the Democratic side, and, you know, and a political opponent of Donald Trump. And we know it's against the law to solicit that type of help from foreign entities for election purposes. So Green Wall Graduation. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So is it me, or does it seem like the Trump administration don't really got any respect for the House Democrat, or for the House of Representatives as a whole? You know what I'm saying? Because they're not all Democrats, but mostly are. Whenever they be issuing these subpoenas, motherfuckers do not respect this shit. Or it seems to happen consistently, right? So Secretary of State Mike Pompeo actually missed a subpoena deadline this past Friday, most likely on purpose. This subpoena required him to hand over documents related to the dealings that were happening in Ukraine, between Ukraine and the White House, or more specifically Donald Trump or whatever. He did admit on Saturday, well, he had already admitted this, but on Saturday he was in Athens, Greece, at this public event where he spoke, and he did publicly admit again that he was on the July 25th phone call that now has sparked an impeachment proceeding against Donald Trump. But he also referred to the whole impeachment inquiry as a silly gotcha game, like basically saying that, you know, we're not focusing on the important problems or the things that are affecting real people, apparently. So I don't know. You see how he feel about it. Green Wall and Graduation. For the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Now, I told y'all that denuclearization talks were actually resuming between North Korea and the United States, but it turns out those talks have actually been called off. Now, there was actually talks that took place in like Stockholm, Sweden, but there was while the U.S. State Department rather had an assessment on how these were, like, you know, rosy, they went good basically, but Kim Jong-il, who's actually the chief nuclear negotiator out there in North Korea, actually said that he denied that assessment, basically saying that the U.S. continues to bring nothing to the table. So even though they have come with flexible approaches and all of that, whatever, but they're bringing nothing to the table. Translation: the U.S. is not willing to make any promises or give up any nuclear firepower in order to get nuclear firepower holding countries to stop producing nuclear firepower. You know what I'm saying? But at least that point on the end, though, that's my assessment. I think it's pretty obvious, though. But what else could he mean by nothing to the table? I guess you had to ask the source. Green War on Graduation. We'll do the Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So the U.S. Special Envoy to Pakistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, actually met with the Afghan Taliban this past Friday. This is the first time that the U.S. is actually meeting with the Taliban since President Trump had called off talks, trying to make peace talks between the Taliban and Afghanistan and the U.S. and all of that just about a month ago. Now, keep in mind, all throughout September, the Taliban has claimed attacks, deadly attacks that have happened throughout Pakistan that have, you could say, were even politically influenced, since it led to there being less than a 25% voter turnout for the presidential election. So these talks are not including the Afghan government, the Kabul-based Afghan government. I mean, shit, the end of the last talks wasn't really including the Afghan government either. So, we'll see what this turns into. Green War and Graduation. The new world order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Now, ever since March of last year, the Great March of Return has taken place out there at the Gaza Strip, which is right at the separation border between Israel and Palestine. Or, you know what I mean? This is like besieged territory, you could say. You know what I'm saying? Territory that's essentially taken by Israel forces. Well, and that's what the protests have been about. Well, this Friday, there was nothing much different. I mean, weekly protests that was met with a lot of violence coming from the Israeli forces. Now, Gaza Health Ministry officials actually said that 22 people were hit with live bullets, but it said that there was one 28-year-old man that was killed and 40 were wounded. So shit got real, and since the Great March of Return actually started, that brings the death toll to 313 on the Palestinian side. So people are dying, and definitely way more have been injured or wounded. And the United Nations already acknowledged this as a possibly war crimes being committed. So we'll see what this turns into. Green War and Graduation. The new world order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. We are 1 year removed from the confirmation of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Now, yesterday actually marked the 1 year anniversary or death anniversary, however you want to look at it, because he was narrowly voted in amidst some credible accusations about attempted rape and sexual assault. Now, I personally thought it was weird that Dr. Christine Ford, one of the accusers, did seem to come out with this allegation right when he's about to get inaugurated. I won't lie, I won't front, but the FBI has reviewed this woman's story, and has reviewed the story of Deborah Ramirez, who's another accuser. But we ain't gonna act like the FBI always keeps it real either. But it all seemed kind of odd, you know what I mean? The accusations, as well as the Republicans' thirstiness to get him in, but they got him in. Women's rights activists, though, went to D.C. on Sunday and were protesting against it. And keep in mind that Representative Ayanna Pressley from New England, she actually had opened up a resolution last month to get him removed. All of this to impeach Brett Kavanaugh. So, and Pressley said to a crowd, I believe Anita Hill, referring to the woman who accused Justice Clarence Thomas of rape back in '91. She said, I believe in Dr. Christine Ford, and I believe in Deborah Ramirez. Green War and Graduation. The new world order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So on Friday, the Supreme Court actually announced that they are going to weigh the constitutionality of Louisiana's recent anti-abortion legislation statute. So if these statutes, which pro-choice groups refer to as trap laws or targeted regulation of abortion providers, this one in particular, Louisiana, actually says that a doctor is only allowed to perform an abortion if he has basically if he's allowed to or is licensed to do so at a nearby hospital. So in Louisiana, this legislation would only leave one single abortion provider in the entire state. So the Supreme Court is going to weigh it out, see what it turns out to be. We'll get the notes on when that's going to take place. Greenwall and graduation. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Hey yo, tomorrow the Supreme Court is going to have an interesting day. The United States Supreme Court is supposed to hear arguments for three cases regarding the LGBTQ community to determine essentially whether people can be fired from their jobs due to gender identity or sexual orientation. Now, it should be, this is obviously described as one of the most important cases of essentially directly affecting the LGBTQ community to ever hit the United States Supreme Court. Now, my whole thing is, it seems to me these are two different things. Whereas like with sexual preference and orientation, it's different. You know, to me that's more clear cut. But that whole gender identity thing, I'm very interested to see how this turns out. Greenwall and graduation. We'll do the Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Now I told y'all about these pro-democracy protests that have been going on in Hong Kong, and that initially started from the extradition bill that has recently been removed due to the weeks of straight up protesting, and it's led to a lot of like back and forth and even violence between the protesters and like Hong Kong authorities. Chinese authorities gearing towards the border of Hong Kong, ready to pounce on the protesters or whatever. Shit is getting real. But I think it's about 18 weeks in on protesting. Now, in response to this, Carrie Lam, the chief executive of Hong Kong, actually had announced a ban on face masks, whether they were for blocking for tear gas or for just trying to hide their identity. Now, in defiance, tens of thousands of people this past Saturday actually hit the streets of Hong Kong in the pouring rain to go against this ban, all masked up. So, of course, like there was a police crackdown. They called the assembly unlawful, a lot of tear gas being fired and all of that, and people charging with batons. And demonstrators were responding with throwing bricks and even gas bombs. So, you know, shit looks wild. I would have to ask the protesters, though, if y'all got the extradition bill removed, it's like, what are your clear-cut negotiations? Like, I don't know. We'll see what happens, though. Greenwall and graduate. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Now, I've told y'all about Extinction Rebellion. This is a climate activist group that's based out of London, but they've been hitting worldwide, launching protests and demonstrations calling for action on climate change in front of, like, you know, sometimes blocking roads, sometimes being outside of energy companies, sometimes being in front of political buildings, basically bringing a lot of attention and, you know, causing a lot of action, putting a ban, and there being a lot of arrests as a result. Well, this past Saturday, they actually launched a 2-week demonstration offensive where they're hitting 60 cities worldwide. They've been starting protests. I mean, you're talking about places like Sydney, Australia. You're talking about like Melbourne and Wellington, New Zealand. You're talking about, you know, London. You know, you're talking about Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Like, it's been real, and scores of people were arrested. And then even in London, there was actually a London police crackdown where they used a battering ram to get into a building that they knew was occupied by Extinction Rebellion, when what they described as a preemptive move to arrest people, and they ended up arresting 10 activists there, and, you know, seizing a lot of supplies for what they thought was going to be a conspiracy to disrupt society, you know what I'm saying, with their protests. Greenwall and graduation. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Make sure y'all sign that petition, y'all. Get Donald Trump off Twitter. Find the change.org link in the video description if you're watching this on YouTube, or go straight to change.org and look up Get Donald Trump off Twitter by Bishop Grady, $Hip Grady, laying out exactly why he should be removed from the platform. Now, on Friday, the Trump administration actually moved to essentially open 720,000 acres to oil and gas drilling. Environmentalists they vowed to sue and block this shit, which essentially would be the first federal fossil fuel lease sales since 2013, when we had to be more environmentally conscious. At least when it was actually the fire got put under our asses as a country. You know what I'm saying? But it seems like we're going in reverse. I mean, I believe it's 64,000 acres in 1 square mile. So if you're talking 720,000 square miles, you do the math on that. Green Wall and Graduation. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. This past Friday, President Donald Trump actually signed a proclamation that basically will deny visas to immigrants who can't afford to purchase health care insurance within the first 30 days of their arrival to the United States. And it will also deny them people who are participating in these health insurance programs from receiving subsidies. So another attack on immigrants. Dude claims to be a nationalist, but is out here also trying to solicit help from foreigners to help him take down political opponents on some globalist shit. You know what I mean? You see the hypocrisy. Green Wall and Graduation. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Pre-trial happened today for Gus Zamora, border patrol agent that was actually charged with sexually assaulting a junior agent this past May. Now, he actually has pled not guilty to actually getting this girl to drink in excess before he led her back to his hotel room and sexually assaulted her. So we'll see how this turns out. I mean, Customs and Border Patrol agents, senior officials rather, actually allowed this man to retire after getting arrested and being charged. So, you see what side they stand on. But we'll see how this all pans out though. Green Wall and Graduation. For the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So Maria Farmer, one of Jeffrey Epstein, the deceased billionaire who was actually a child sex trafficker and been doing so for some decades, and recently actually apparently killed himself in a state prison, a Fed prison, pardon me, in New York. He was probably going to bring down not only himself, but a bunch of other world leaders who have been buying little girls off of them. So Maria Farmer actually was one of those accusers, and she came public with her story for the first time ever with the Washington Post. Initially, she had detailed her assault by Jeffrey Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell earlier this year in the affidavit related to the case. But with the Washington Post, she actually blamed Leslie Wexner for her assault, because Leslie Wexner is a billionaire CEO of the parent company of Victoria's Secret, and basically that assault happened in his mansion, and when she tried to leave, his security guards wouldn't let her go. That's fucking crazy. Green Wall and Graduation. For the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Make sure y'all sign that petition to get Donald Trump off Twitter. Find the change.org link in the video description if you're watching this on YouTube, or go straight to change.org. Now, rest in power to Joshua Brown. He was killed on Friday in Dallas, Texas, right outside of his apartment. Now, the crazy thing about it is Joshua Brown was a key witness in the case involving the death of his neighbor, 26-year-old Botham Jean, where last year this white female off-duty officer, Amber Geiger, basically came into what she thought was her apartment, but she actually lived on the floor above. She went to the apartment directly below hers, thinking she was in her apartment, and ended up killing Botham Jean, thinking that was an intruder. Now, keep in mind that when these stories first came out, it was said that she was drunk. So the Dallas PD may have tried to cover that up, but there was definitely like some evidence tampering that the Jean family suspects the PD of being a part of. Among other things, they tried to say that she had ordered, yelled out commands to him, when Joshua Brown actually directly challenged that while testifying on court, saying he didn't hear her shout anything. So, and he was all shooken up about it, because he's like, yo, damn, that could have been me. They was just met that day and was smoking weed together and all that. So it's like crazy. Yo. Green Wall and Graduation. Is it some conspiracy shit or some street shit? Green Wall and Graduation. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Remember I told y'all last week on how Bernie Sanders was in the hospital, and he actually had to have 2 stents inserted to unclog a blocked artery. Turns out he suffered a heart attack while he was campaigning in Las Vegas. God damn. 78-year-old Bernie Sanders, yo. Everybody always suspected he was too old to really be doing this shit, but this kind of doesn't help that. This doesn't necessarily mean shit. Young people could have a heart attack, you know what I'm saying? Like, even though most likely you're going to be old and doing that, but having one. But nevertheless, he you know, stayed at the area hospital for 2.5 days and then went back home to Burlington, Vermont with his wife. Hopefully she gave him some head or something, like, you know what I'm saying? You, after a heart attack, yo, if you a wife, you gotta make it feel good, you know what I mean? All that stuff coming from the campaign, I hope you bless the God some level, man. They too old for that shit. Greenwald graduation. Further to go to Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Hey, keep in mind that the Coalition for the Homeless in New York City has actually warned that homelessness in New York City has reached its highest level since the Great Depression in the 1930s. So that's saying a lot. But I say that in the beginning to basically talk on Randy Santos, a 24-year-old homeless person that apparently struggling with addiction, was actually arrested because there were actually four homeless people that were brutally murdered, and the fifth one that was badly injured, and Randy Santos was arrested as the culprit. So, you know what I'm saying? It's fucked up. But if you are homeless out there in New York City, man, stay woke, man. You're not safe just because, or don't think people just gonna feel sorry for you, yeah? Greenwald graduation.